Well, hi again, everyone. Welcome into Unanchored Boston with Bob Lobel. I'm Mike Lynch. And as always, we're brought to you by Cold Springs RV, your destination for all things camping. And where? We're in New Hampshire, of course, and the great George Gray. The big wheel, we call him, at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. And we've got a big wheel today with us because he's just come off about 40 days without a day off. But everybody in the world would love to have his job this time of the year. Karl Ravech, the great one from the pride of Needham, the pride of Ithaca College, the pride of ESPN, and now he's with us. And Lobel gets really pissed off, Karl, if he doesn't handle the formal introduction. So I have to yield the floor to Lobel right now.
First of all, my daughter went to Ithaca too, okay? I've been at Ithaca many times. She was a goaltender for the lacrosse team.
Is that right?
Yeah, so anyway, I
Who
love
was
Ithaca.
the coach there? Who was the coach there when she went
I
there?
don't know, but her name was Coachy. I just know that her nickname was Coachy.
All right. They were very good at that sport.
Yeah, they were, and I was, always happy to go up there and get to that part of New York. But
you're on the side of the hill going up there, and you're on the side of the hill when you're leaving there all the time.
So how did you end up being an intern for Lynch? I mean, this is like disturbing because it couldn't have been your first choice. You don't have to say that.
Well, I don't know that it was my choice. I think it was the people who I interviewed with his choice, and they were the ones. Mike Fernandez was willing to say, "Come on aboard." As I said to you guys before we started, I stopped on Soldiers Field Road and talked to Alan Miller about interning at then Channel 4 and Channel 7 in Boston, and then Channel 5, which is where I'm from.
Right down the street, all you had to do is go walk down. At least you couldn't get lost.
I'm not sure. Yeah, exactly right. And I'm not even sure you were there that day, because part of going there to interview was to see you. I mean, you got to remember, growing up in Needham, Mass, back when sports was really important, local TV wise, we would be glued to the TV, and that was long before interning there. I mean, you guys all lived it, doing 7, 8 on the weekend, 13 minutes of sports within a newscast. For a guy that grew up rooting for, the Bruins and the Celtics, because the Patriots sucked back then, that was where I wanted to be. So I ended up there, and it turned out to be, one of the greatest, stepping stones of my career, that's for sure.
Sometimes you go to places, Karl, where you learn things, what not to do. This could have been one of the situations.
There was a little bit of that. There was some of that.
We used to have a thing every night. We'd have the interns come up with a slug for the slide that was over your shoulder, and we'd tell them, we said, if you don't come up with a slug, you're fired. So they would spend the whole night saying, like, okay, Varsity Blues or Sox take the apple when they lose in New York or something like that, and they were pretty good. I got to be honest with you.
Poison apple, I recall. Poison apple for when the Sox lose at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, Bob, I don't know how your interns work, but, I remember editing music pieces. There was a guy who was just obsessed, literally turned his chair around and stared at Lynchy writing his script, which was troubling and scary at the same time. But that was his role. Another guy that interned with me, I think he still produces the Celtics games.
Yeah, Paul.
Paul Lucy was a good friend of mine. We went to Ithaca as well. He was with me in Ithaca, so we had a good experience. That may have been another thing that led me there, as I knew he was interning there.
Well, it all works out. Obviously, it all worked out, Karl, for you, and doing Major League Baseball and all the other incidental things, along with ESPN, the Little League World Series and College World Series. And I think doing Major League Baseball play-by-play would be the ultimate. It's just so cool. It's just
yeah.
Go ahead. We're going to talk about this, but now that I just want to get to that platform of your connection with Major League Baseball, because
sure.
I've had this conversation since I'm sitting around waiting for Game 8 of this World Series to start. It's got to start tonight. It can't be, and can't end with Game 7.
You're right.
Karl, let me just ask you one thing, okay? Then I'll shut up. I promise.
Just let him talk, Bob. I
will. Okay, I will. Just want to ask him this important thing. The Rojas play at the plate. The review.
Yeah.
this World Series theoretically could have ended in a review, which to me would have been the most horrible thing. I mean, the technology has ruled the day. Technology has gotten us to a point where it's taken all the human element out of the play.
Yeah, I will say that as soon as that play happened and the replay was shown the first time, I sent a variety of texts as well as one of the posts on X. OMG, like, oh my God, was he even on home plate? So yeah, I looked at that. Look, I'm not going to go all conspiracy theory on Major League Baseball and the review crew and the umpires saying we can't have a game end like that. But that's certainly something in the back of your mind. You're wondering if they considered like this would be a nightmare if the game ended and the play was over and the Blue Jays won on a review. But look, this is all conspiring the way things are being done now to have a game end that way, to have a World Series game end on a review or a call that gets overturned. I'm not sure Will Smith's toe was on home. I'm not sure it got back on home. I really didn't. I didn't know. I mean, my guess is if they had ruled him safe, it would have stayed safe. And since they called him out, it was going to be out. But
I think
my relationship.
I mean, somebody had it's hard for me to comprehend that they haven't considered that possibility that a key game, that
Of course.
penultimate game, could have ended that way. You think they would have had that, but apparently not, right? Apparently not.
No, that could have happened. You guys, sportscasters around the world would have been on ESPN and everywhere else talking about a World Series that ended on an overturned call. No question there's no question that can happen and very likely will. But let me answer your first question, Bob, about relationship with Major League Baseball. I got to ESPN in 1993 and within 2 years had moved off the Sports Center desk on a part-time basis and started to cover baseball with a show called Baseball Tonight, which through the 90s was wildly popular because there were no RSNs. They didn't exist. And if they did exist, they immediately would, after the game, go to regular programming. There would be no post game with Tom Caron in Boston or whoever it might be in New York or wherever these shows are. So they would always flip over to ESPN. So it was a wildly popular show amongst fans and certainly amongst players. In 1994, I got very involved with baseball and chasing owners around city streets during the work stoppage. It was a disaster and a nightmare. But I got to know Rob Manfred very well. He was the lead negotiator for Major League Baseball. I got to know him very well. So that was really the foundation of the relationship with Major League Baseball. That program and getting to know him really well, and subsequently the Players Association as well. So I was in, and what appealed to me was partly when you do Sports Center, like you guys, when you were anchoring your shows, and I'm guessing at some point, and I'm certain in Lynch's case, and I would no doubt with you, Bob, at some point you kind of get tired of the script, and I didn't like Sports Center as much because it was very rote. You would sit, you type out a lead in, you do the highlights, and Baseball Tonight had literally no script. It had a rundown, and that's what appealed to me for 20 some odd years. I loved it because every night was different. Somebody's in your ear saying, we got to go update this. They have a bank of monitors with every game, and you can see a Ken Griffey plate appearance. You could see whoever it may be sliding in, and you were producing from the set, which was a blast. And you guys are very familiar with Peter Gammons, et cetera. I worked with over 70 different analysts over the course of my career on that show, and I loved it. My goal was to make them, look better, and I would play off of them. It was as good an experience as I think anybody can have in television. Unscripted, live baseball, literally from an anchor chair. It was wonderful.
I know it's unfair to ask you to pick one, but who came in the most prepared every single night?
It's interesting because we would go into a meeting probably at 4 o'clock every day with ideas of what the show will look like, knowing it's going to get blown up. I mean, you could come in with all sorts of different ideas because, Roy Halladay, late Roy Halladay, he's starting. So Peter Gammons would come up with all these nuggets about Roy Halladay or Manny Ramirez, because of his Boston slant. I would say that sitting in those chairs at night, though, it was some of the managers. Buck Showalter was unbelievable at observing things in a way that nobody else would observe things. And you got to know the personalities. So to answer your question, a guy like Showalter, Mark Teixeira, very prepared. Curt Schilling, believe it or not, Curt Schilling could talk and know the game as well as anybody. I mean, that, honest to God, it was an education listening to him talk about pitching and break down pitching and anticipating pitching and how you set hitters up and how hitters are trying to set you up. Just a brilliant baseball mind. He was a blast to sit around. And I tell you, there were many a nights, fellas, where we would tape stuff after a show and Schilling couldn't control himself with laughter. After Arizona, everything about Schilling that you thought about, he also shared a new chapter of his life with his sense of humor. John Kruk was another guy. I mean, people who know Krucky love Krucky. I mean, literally, like, I would say the most affectionate response to any analyst I've ever gotten was John Kruk. No matter where you went, he's like every guy. And it's true. But the stories he would tell and his knowledge about hitting and his knowledge about baseball, and maybe even more so, his ability to read a player was unbelievable. So Krucky's another one. But my God, I started with Roy Smalley. I went through Mike McFarland. We had Fernando Vina. We had Dusty. We had Bobby Valentine. Like, it's a hell of a list of people that sat in those chairs, many of whom went back to manage, Aaron Boone, Alex Cora. Cora's another guy that was just brilliant in his baseball acumen. So I root for, people say, who do you root for? You root for the Red Sox because you grew up there. And I said, I've seen them win, so I don't necessarily root hard for them anymore. I root for the people. And it has to do with many of the people I worked with. That's who I want to see win.
You mentioned Schilling, and we had to bring in the Hall of Fame in the special committee that just decided Dwight Evans is not moving on. And Roger Clemens and a lot of these drug PED guys are moving on. What the hell's going on with this one?
Well, that's all a matter of opinion and where you fall. To me, Schilling's a Hall of Famer. I mean, if you take just his baseball, I mean, he's no doubt an unquestionable Hall of Famer. It becomes difficult, and you guys know this. I know you've been asked this question. How do you distinguish what you assume to be Barry Bonds before he got involved with PEDs? And was he a Hall of Famer already? And is that enough to say he's in? Look, I know the people that are on some of those committees, and ultimately the makeup of the committee is going to decide whether those guys get in or not. I know there are a lot of people that are Hall of Famers that were on those committees who steadfastly would never allow them to get in. The answer was no. As the makeup of that thing changes, you may see some softening. You may see them get in. That's how I would answer it. Schilling's a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, as a pitcher. There's no doubt.
He just can't help himself, though. And he's been, when he came here from Arizona, the word was, watch out for this guy sooner or later. And he'll start being the clubhouse lawyer, and he'll be the voice of the team, and this and that. And they were all right. And he just can't help himself. I mean, you just wish somebody would put some gaffer's tape over his mouth sometime, or handcuff his hands behind his back. But then he wouldn't be Curt Schilling.
I was going to say that there's a lot of people who can't help themselves, who've had great success, and he's unabashedly, who he is. I don't think he particularly gives a crap about not being in the Hall of Fame, although I would imagine if you gave him some truth serum, he'd probably like to be. He'd like to be recognized for what he did on the mound, but I don't think he's going to stop. I mean, look, I got Schilling stories. We were doing spring training together, and we drove from one end of Florida to the other. I don't know. We could have been in. We ended up in Port St. Lucie on the East Coast, and we started. I don't know, somewhere on the West Coast, not near Tampa. I mean, way down on the West Coast, and drove across Florida, and we got into Kurt Schilling sitting in the back seat, and then coming up to the front seat like this, and he's talking to you about evolution and other things, and you're like, my God, by the end of this, I need a lobotomy. Like, what just happened? This wasn't the conversation I thought we were going to have. So I don't think he's ever changed. I think he's had opinions about all these things. I wish we could distinguish what he did on a baseball field from all the other stuff, because the baseball guy was a Hall of Famer. And look, I visited him in the hospital in Boston when he was dealing with his cancer. I've seen him at the lowest of lows. I've seen him at the highest of highs, and I'm sort of in the middle. I think he's a Hall of Fame pitcher for sure.
If you take him as a baseball guy, isn't that what it's all about? Except for the Rule 5 clause.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Exactly.
What about Evans?
Yeah, I find myself, and as a broadcaster, we don't have a vote. I often wish, especially in the middle of the baseball tonight, that we had an opportunity, because we're so involved with it. I mean, you got to be around it, and on a national level, it lends itself to seeing everybody and being able to compare everybody. I would probably consider myself a very tough grader. I probably wouldn't have as many people in as there are currently in. To me, Dwight Evans was a great player. He didn't, for me, reach that level of, in a sense, different. Like, is he that much different than the really great players of his generation? No. To me, a Hall of Famer are the guys that stand out. I mean, that you look at and you're seeing a Hall of Famer. I'm not switching gears or getting off topic, but part of the internship those years was to go cover the Celtics, and you knew Larry Bird was different. He wasn't a very good player. He was exceptional. That's a Hall of Famer. Evans, to me, was in the class of many other really, really good outfielders who had a ridiculous arm and played a difficult right field incredibly well. But did he separate himself? Not enough, to me, if I had a vote, to be a Hall of Famer.
So, Karl, you just finished covering the World Series, and in your lifetime,
yeah,
has any World Series topped that one?
Again, a lot of this stuff, guys, is recency bias. When you're in the moment, it feels like it's the greatest thing you've ever seen. I certainly would argue it's a top 3 World Series that I've ever seen. I'm 60. And as Game 7s go, it was a top 3. If you want to argue it was number 1, I'm not gonna tell you you're wrong. If you're going to tell me it was behind 1991, it was behind 1986, I'm not going to argue. This is what's so great about sports, is everybody's got an opinion and everybody knows everything. I would say
this close to being decided in a control room in New York City.
but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't, and it was ultimately decided by the Dodgers and their incredible talent. Yeah, sure, Lynchy, it's 1, 2, or 3. It's the best Game 7, like the most interesting, exciting. You're up and down, you're screaming, you can't believe this stuff just happened. Was that Rajai Davis or was that Miguel Rojas? Like, who the hell hit that home run? It felt very much like that Cleveland homer. The plays, Pages, I thought Kike Hernandez was dead. I mean, that would have also been another chapter in the World Series. Is he going to move? What happened to him? And then he goes to first base. He's on his ass again. So Kike was on the ground as much as Frazier was in an Ali fight. So I thought it was as entertaining a Game 7 as any I can remember. So I usually split it into Game 7. It was probably number 1 World Series. You could certainly make the case. It was amazing.
That ball, that center fielder for the Dodgers was one of the smartest plays I've ever seen, because that ball was debatable whether it was stuck under the padding. He just put his arms up, and that just halted everything and changed everything.
It's funny because his manager immediately after, Roberts, said he made a mistake. Roberts' point was, go get it, just in case it's not dead. You know, and I really think, having heard about the rule book, it's supposed to, in a sense, not be able to be seen, let alone be retrieved. Clearly, you could see it, and it was very obvious when he went to pick it up. It wasn't stuck.
Right.
In hindsight, sure, throwing your arms up, but his own manager said, go get the damn ball, throw it back in, and then we'll let review say it was lodged. There were great reactions in that moment. You know, he didn't know what to do, and then he saw Kike Hernandez like this, so then he put his arms up. I mean, Kike was the one who said, oh, don't go get it. And then Kike thought to himself, holy smokes, go get that ball. Maybe it's not dead. It was really interesting.
Very. I'm going to go to the last play of the World Series, a double play. I mean, it seemed like it was anything but routine double play. I thought Mookie Betts made one hell of a play on that ball and completed that double play in the ultimate pressure circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, he did. You know, I think nobody really remembers that the bat shattered and some of it went between third and short, so he had to deal with that. I think it was Addison Barger who was sliding in. I mean, that slow-mo replay shows, you know, Betts's throw nearly hit his hand, which was up in the air, and that would have been a fascinating call as well. Look, the one thing you learn about doing the Sunday Night Baseball, and we do so many Dodgers games, how close Miguel Rojas and Mookie Betts are. Every Sunday, and we did them 5 times, and then the playoffs. Hours before the game, Mookie Betts is the only guy out there fielding balls at shortstop. And the only other guy out there standing next to him is Miguel Rojas. He was the Mookie Betts shortstop whisperer. And I'm not talking about for 5 minutes. He would be anchored, not unanchored, anchored next to Mookie Betts. And he would sit there and Mookie would literally, like a professor, what do I do here? What do I do here? We found out after the World Series this year, he was, during that game, asking Miguel Rojas, ball hit to me, what am I doing? Where am I going with it? What's going to happen here? So the idea that Rojas was a hero, that Rojas was playing there at second base, if you look at the offensive numbers that Betts has when Rojas is playing, it doubles his offensive production, Mookie Betts. Maybe it's weird, but it does. His batting average is nearly doubled. His OPS is nearly doubled by the mere presence somehow of Rojas on the field. And clearly, having Rojas hit the homer and then being at second base when Mookie made that double play, there was a fitting bow tie to the end of that season for both of those guys. And, you know, I get to know these guys. It's terrific. That was a hunch Roberts had. You guys have been around coaches and managers forever. Robert's hunch was, I need Rojas in Game 6. He was amazing. He helped win Game 6. He certainly helped win Game 7.
So was Mookie Betts the second biggest guy that got away after Babe Ruth in 1918? Second biggest blunder in Red Sox history?
Yeah, he probably is. Now, I don't know that they would have the success they've had if Mookie Betts were there either. I mean, you know, that's a hard one. You know, the Red Sox have been as successful a franchise in a lot of ways since he's left than when he was there. I think what really rubs people about Betts, his ability, first and foremost. You never let somebody like that go. But his ability to win, that's 4 World Series rings he has. There are certain players, Brady, you know, that we're all familiar with up there, Bird. There are guys who win. He is a winner, where he is teams win. In a lot of weird ways, Kike Hernandez is another one of those guys. They win. So the third part is his affability. He's as likable an athlete as there is. So that also, you know, rubs you a little bit as a Red Sox fan and the one who got away. But look, I'd argue that having grown up there and been there when you guys were all doing what you did, they weren't very good. They didn't win anything, and it wasn't until 2004, where finally they broke that curse. And we know now they won a hell of a lot more World Series than the Yankees have won here in recent times. So I'm not saying it worked out very well for both sides, because Mookie people want him in a Red Sox uniform his entire career. But things have turned out okay at Fenway as well.
All right, I have a question. Go ahead, Lynch. You want to throw one up? Okay, I want to, Carl,
We get more.
Sunday Night Baseball. Earlier this season, I think you had a Red Sox Yankee game on.
Probably.
And
Yeah.
Right. And the dude, they mic'd up Cedar Rafaela. And I know it was such an awkward thing. And I know that sometimes, as we talked about, the technology has caused us to do things we normally would not do. And miking up players during the game, real-time conversations with players during the game, looking down at their cards or whatever they're doing, it's pretty weird, Carl. And I go back to that Raphael thing because I know these guys get like 10 grand a pop for whatever it is, but who generated this idea, and who decides what the questions are, and who decides when to pull the plug on this idea?
Okay, all good questions, Bob. All good questions. For
Really?
the purpose of this interview, I wish I could say it was my idea, but I wouldn't say it was mine. But it sort of started with Sunday Night Baseball, and as you've now seen, it's drifted into every single sport, including golf, when the guys are walking down fairways, etc. I think there's a distinction that I would make between the regular season and postseason. I will say that most of the players enjoy it. They look at it as a unique opportunity. Look, when we get involved, as we do with charity events, people that go to events, they want experiences. They want the curtain to be pulled back on things. They want to experience things that you wouldn't otherwise experience. The idea of a microphone on a player while he's playing a regular season game, it's rare that the ball gets hit to them. We've had many instances where it happened. Francisco Lindor had a tough one-hop play. He ran off the field saying, "Thank God, I made that play." Nobody's more sensitive to a player wearing a microphone than I am, and the two people sitting next to me and the producer, when there's going to be a challenging play. You're like, "Oh my God, please let this guy make this play. We don't want, the distraction of a microphone or an earpiece to cause in any way him not to be able to make the play." We would be mortified and very upset about it. From a host or play-by-play guy's perspective, I try very carefully never to ask a question while a pitch is being thrown, sensitive to the player. Mookie Betts, to go back to, Mookie was the first one in spring training a long time ago. And spring training was the stepping stone into, okay, it worked in spring training. What about regular season? Okay, well, they're willing to try that. Let's do it then. And we obviously haven't seen it in the postseason, but Mookie had one of the great lines of all time. As we're sitting there talking with him, he's in right field. A ball's going over his head, and as he's running after it, he said, "Not going to get to this one, fellas." And right there, you're like, "Holy smoke!" Like, that's fantastic. That's the thought process of the player, sharing it with the audience. And I would say this, Bob, or Lobie, as we used to call you as kids. That's what we're after. What can the player wearing a microphone teach the people at home watching? What can they teach? And ideally, it's their thinking. Eduardo Perez, I promise you, his dad, who's a Hall of Famer, you all know Tony and what he did in '75 for the Big Red Machine. He can't be too crazy about players being mic'd, I promise you. But his son is really good. Eduardo, what he will ask, "Bob, you're the second baseman and you have a microphone on. All right, Bob, tell me, what are you doing now? Where are you going to go with this ball if it's hit to you?" It's another way to give the audience a little bit of a peek into the thought process of a player and what they're going through. But look, I appreciate your feelings about it. There's a lot of people who don't like it. There's a lot of people who do.
You know, and I'm really glad you had a chance to talk about that, Carl, because you're talking to two sides of the equation. You're talking to baseball purists. You're talking to guys that grew up before this technology was available.
Yeah.
And you're talking, your explanation and direction is certainly in the right place and trying to educate and bring more people into the game that normally would not have been in the game at that particular point, that normally would not know what to do. Totally understood, and a totally rational and really great explanation.
You can't have a guy like when the inning was over and the mic was off say, "I'm never doing that. I'm effing never doing that again." That was awful. Did any guys get pissed off that they actually agreed to do it?
Yeah. Cody Bellinger, believe it or not, in spring training, the inning lasted 6 days, and he had the microphone on and the earpiece. And honest to God, when he was done with that inning, and this was when the Yankees, you do it with a guy in the field, they were getting just torched, 7, 8 runs. And it's not like we said, hey, you know what, just take that earpiece out. We're good. It's spring training. We need this. So we're gonna milk this cow until the teat is dry. And at the end of it, it was 10, 15 minutes. He's like, fellas, never doing it again. Not going to do that one again. So it was based on the fact that he had to sit there and make conversation with us. Other people, like Bryce Harper's used it as a bully pulpit. I mean, he's gone out there and if he wants to make a statement about something involving the sport, bigger picture, he'll use that as an opportunity to make a statement. So there's some comedians. We've had some guys sing. We've had some guys who you're like, oh my God, there's no teeth left in the mouth to pull. That's not going to work. We've discovered it's not always the biggest name on the team who's the best at doing the microphone. That's for sure.
Right. There's no question. I love it. I'm a baseball fan and played it my whole life. And I just love it. And I think it does everything that all the 10 reasons why it's a good thing you just mentioned, I'm in agreement with, because it really brings you inside. And I want to know what that guy's thinking about. Like, okay, there's a guy on second base, but he doesn't have great wheels. So, we're going to make sure we keep the batter off second base. If we'll forget about him going to third or whatever. He's not going to score. I just like it. I like it.
Yeah, but Carl, I think the real key to this whole thing is asking the questions. You have to ask the right questions. You can't ask them what kind of ice cream did you have before you came to the game. You have to figure out what kind of important questions to ask in the context of the moment.
In the context of the moment, if there is a moment. I mean, in Cody Bellinger's case, I don't think we stopped at ice cream. We may have gotten into desserts. We may have gotten into the appetizers. I mean, it's not, the other beautiful part of it, guys, is that you do want to learn. It's an opportunity to learn about the player. I mean, think about, as you just mentioned, Bob, the non-purists, the kids, the women, if they're not purists, the older guys that are watching. Say, I do want to know, like, what his routine is. How does he get to the ballpark? What does he do in the off season? There is an interest in that. And look, I understand there's a lot of other places to go to get that information. But when you hear it directly from the horse's mouth, it can be entertaining. It can be funny. You can hear about, I think the other part of the Mookie interview, or at least subsequently one we did with him, there's sort of a list of Hall of Fame microphone guys. Mookie's a Hall of Famer microphone wearer. Right after he had a baby, he got into changing diapers and the hours that he's missing with his eyes shut. He's up all night. That does help you understand the player and what they're dealing with, and it humanizes them. I think that's probably something I hadn't mentioned about the microphone. It humanizes these guys.
Until they talked to the first baseman who said, "I'm sorry, I was just checking out the woman sitting up in the third row behind the dugout."
Yeah. Haven't had that yet, but we have had first basemen talk about gold teeth with other guys that are at first base. I mean, that in a good world, you do get those exchanges. First baseman's wearing the microphone. Somebody gets walked, and all of a sudden you got a conversation going on. We don't even have to be a part of. That part's pretty cool too.
That would be very cool, because you always kind of want, okay, what are they talking about, right?
Right.
Where are they going after the game? Blah blah blah. So,
right.
Okay, I got to do.
You have to alert the other team that the first baseman, let's say Red Sox first baseman's wearing a mic. you let the Tiger dugout know about that? So be careful, but I just want to let you know that.
I will say this, and you know, as this work stoppage and labor strife moves closer to us, you realize that the players are very, very much aligned on nearly everything. One of the things that the players are incredibly conscientious of is if it is a first baseman, if it's a shortstop and somebody's going to second, you always see them do this, which is a universal signal for I have a microphone on. And anybody that plays Sunday Night Baseball pretty much knows somebody's wearing the microphone. We don't go out of our way to tell the other team, but there has not been a situation where a player has been surprised. Always does the guy wearing the microphone, when someone else is approaching them, I'm mic'd up. I have a microphone. So be careful what you say.
Remember that, Bob, all right? If I could you know, where else place? You know, I got a mic on.
Do any camping, Carl? You ever do any camping? Like when you went from Needham High School down the street to Channel 5, did you actually take a camper to get there? Or when you went to Ithaca, did you stop out? Do any camping?
I went to an overnight camp in Amesbury, Mass. It was hardly camping. We had one experience where the kids, all of us, would sleep out at night, you know, in a tent. I woke up with the worst allergies I've ever had. I have subsequently I've never camped again. No.
This is not helpful, Carl. This is a camping. This is a camper commercial, and this is not helpful.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, this is what we get from miking up the players and asking them questions.
I should have told you this.
Not knowing what the answers are. Okay, I'm going to continue down this road because a lot of campers are heading down the road. Off-season pricing is here at Cold Springs RV. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at everything you said, Bob. You're funny.
Bobby, if I had a Cold Springs RV, I'd be camping a lot more.
You know what? Now we're getting there. Tent. Let's go back to the microphone on the field and check out what Carl's thinking about camping right now. Off-season pricing is here at Cold Springs RV. Now is the best time to buy with their off-season ending savings. Go check out the latest in new and pre-owned pop-ups, travel trailers, fifth wheelers, and motorhomes. It's a whole new world out there, Carl. A whole new world. We just are, trying to figure out how to live in it. Keep your RV secure all winter long and storage starting at just $100 a month, or get free winter storage with an RV purchase. There you go. Protect your RV with winterizing at their Pro RV Service Center. Get the Cold Springs RV in Ware, New Hampshire. Where,
Bob?
North of Kingsborough and west of Goffstown.
Where was that?
It's north of Needham in Kingsborough and west of Goffstown.
Is that who's on first? Where? Is that what you're all doing there? Who's on first? Where?
Oh, it's pretty good. Who was on first earlier this year? That was baseball's. Remember, there was a Japanese player by the name of H.O.
Yes.
Who's on first? It was the greatest.
Yes.
Okay, shut up, Bob. Or ColdSpringsRV.com. But, Carl, here's where you come into the equation. And let's introduce you to camping at the highest level.
All right, Carl. So as you probably figured out by now, you're not getting paid for this appearance.
I don't want to get paid. Here's what I do want, though. And I don't know if you guys are limited on time, but I want to be able to just reverse the roles for 1 second, because people that I grew up with will watch this. I will tell them to go watch this. And I want the opportunity to just ask you guys a quick question. And I will preface it by saying, Bob, you and sports were so popular at the time we were growing up. I couldn't begin to come up with the reason, but one of my very close friends, as we watched the Celtics play in the playoffs, every year, we nicknamed him Lobel. His name is not Bob. His name is Steve. His last name is no relation to Bob or Lobel, but he became Lobel. I must be because we would talk about your sportscast, and this was long before I interned. I was a high school student, so we literally to this day, hey, what's up, Lobel? I mean, and that's that was a tribute. That was a tribute to you. So let me ask you this, fellas. Given the Hall of Fame careers you had, Lynchy, you answer first. In all your time at Channel 5, what was the one seminal event or person who you came across that in a sense impacted your career in any way? Who is or what was the event?
I thought that, and you might remember this from your intern days, that I would get down to the garden. I didn't, sometimes, every time I get down to the garden, let me put it that way, there was one person in the building, Larry Bird.
Yeah. Like,
He was shooting Joe Catato, who was another intern of ours, by the way, and he'd be feeding him balls, and then Bird would run laps around the Lobes section, around and around and around. And I'd look around and I said, this guy's the best player in the league. There isn't one teammate that is here yet. Where are the young guys? I mean, they should be out here. And it also taught me a lesson, like, get your ass to the event early because you never know who's going to walk in. You never know what's going to happen. Just be there, all right? And so that taught me a great lesson for myself. And what I do is get there, be there. Even if nothing happens, you're there. There might be, but one day somebody's going to walk in. Who walks in? I don't know. Let's say Bill Russell walks in and he's having a conversation with Bird. Well, you get your money shot, and you maybe have an outside chance of maybe getting Bill Russell on the air.
yeah.
That's my answer to that question.
How about you, Bob?
Well, I had a little longer time to think about it. Mike did. I'd say, Carl, this is probably going to be a disappointing answer, but it would probably be Liz Walker. I don't think
Yeah, sure.
I would have had any close kind of a success without her. And I don't say that. I'm not trying to be modest about it. I just think that happens to be true. I'd never tell that to her in person. You heard this. I totally. I said, what are you, crazy, Liz? Why would I say something like that? But I'd have to say that she was a pretty big influence on.
No doubt. No doubt. Part of what made watching you so enjoyable, all of you guys. I mean, you had Chet and Nat on one station, you had Liz Walker on the other station. That dynamic helped make that. And it's interesting you say that, Lynchy, because when I thought about coming on with you guys, I figured one of the questions would be, what was one of the most important experiences, or what did you take away from the internship? And it was exactly what you just said. I mean, that was, you talk about pulling back the curtain. We would get to the garden and I would go on those things, and Bird would be shooting, and you're like, Mike. And I was a high school basketball player in Needham, not very good, but for our generation, we grew up wanting to shoot like Bird. We pretended we were him. We did the ball fake and the shoot and the fadeaway, all of those things. And to be able to get to the garden early and watch him do that was absolutely the most indelible image I have from that internship. Larry Bird pregame shooting. I have 2 signed jerseys in my house from years of ESPN, let alone Boston. One's a Bobby Orr jersey and the other's a Larry Bird jersey. Like those were the 2 guys, for me that I grew up with, and I have a million Tiger Woods lithographs for when I covered the PGA Tour and he was busy winning all the major championships, the 2000s, early Pebble Beach and St. Andrews. But Bird and Orr were my guys, no question about it.
Yeah.
So
now
ask Carl about the camper thing. Ask him about.
We have to get back to that. All right, so you're not getting paid, so that I know that comes as no surprise. That's a real shock. So remember, John Madden had a Madden cruiser.
Yeah.
Cold Springs RV is going to build a Lobel Lynchy cruiser, which is going to be the best has ever been created on this planet. And you get to use it for 1 week from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, 7 days, and we'll fly you back. But you have to pick somebody to ride shotgun with you.
Won't be Kurt Schilling, I know that.
So it won't be Kurt Schilling. There won't be any discussion about the theory of evolution. I can tell you that. But you're going to pick one person to ride shotgun with you for 7 days. Somebody you'd like to, just shoot the shit with and just have some think and have a good time with. You can stop and play golf if you want. You can do anything you want for 7 days. Who would it be?
That is an amazing question and a great proposition. Boy, that's a really good question. Let me just give you a few of the thoughts that popped into my head right away. My wife would certainly be one of those people because we've never done that in an RV. We've never driven across the country. I like to drive. I would imagine she would not enjoy that. So she would be one of them. Boy, that's my brother, my father, a younger version of my father would have been really neat to do that with. That would have been great. Yeah, I mean, I could turn it into a golf trip. That's another great question. So I got a whole bunch of people I'd play golf with. Are you looking like for a particular name right now?
Yeah.
I would invite John Kruk on that trip. That's who I would take with me because he's a golfer. He's wildly entertaining. He'll remind me of stories he told about shooting squirrels from a hot tub while naked. So he would entertain the hell out of me. John Kruk would ride. I'd invite Krucky to ride in the RV with me.
That's a good call. I would love to see that. Love to have tape on it, but with no videotapes, and you don't even have to go like this on the trip ball. No hot mics.
None of this.
None of this.
No.
None of that stuff.
Why do I have this vision of shooting squirrels in a tub when you're naked?
Yeah.
It's a vision.
Especially him.
Things you can't unsee.
Where was this tub? It has to be outdoors, right?
Oh yeah, outdoors. This was West Virginia when he was growing up. Yeah, I mean the stories he would tell, that was just and that's a minor one compared to some of the other things I've heard. This is where I would do this.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Unfortunately, the American League and the National League each has their MVP, but let's just pretend for a second that there's one MVP award. Do you give it to Ohtani or do you give it to Judge?
Yeah, Ohtani. I don't even know why if there was one MVP, there wouldn't be a question. And again, Ohtani didn't pitch a lot of this year. But we've seen Ohtani do things on a baseball field when he couldn't pitch for the year in which he stole 50 bases. He's uniquely gifted. What Judge does offensively, when his arm doesn't hurt, he's a good thrower. He's a good fielder. Ohtani is going to be the greatest baseball player any of us have ever seen. I mean, it's unequivocal. We didn't see Babe Ruth. He's better than Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth never did the things Ohtani's done. He's doing it at a time in which obviously baseball is now integrated from around the world. So nobody has ever been able to pitch at his level, hit at his level, run at his level. If they decide, you know what, you're not going to pitch anymore, you're going to play right field, he'd be unbelievable at that. So Ohtani is unquestionably the best player in baseball, and he's the MVP every year right now until another one comes along.
Well, let's go to Judge and Raleigh.
Yeah, I'm a little split on that one. I've certainly heard both arguments. I know them, so and I flipped on it. I mean, I probably have gone back and forth on this one quite a bit. I think there's a ton of relevance to doing what Raleigh does every day as a catcher and hitting more homers than anybody's ever done as a switch hitter, as a Mariner, all that stuff. But yeah, I would say this. I think what happens, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think what happens is for a while, Mike Trout could have been the MVP every year, and you almost look for a reason to vote for somebody else. It feels like there may be a group who feel like, well, Judge is going to hit 60 almost every year. He could always win it. This may be a one-off for Raleigh, where he's never going to replicate this again. And we're going to vote for Raleigh. I may fall into that camp this time. I would imagine I would vote for Raleigh over Judge, knowing again this is one where you could make an unbelievable case for both. I'd lean to Raleigh as the MVP in the American League.
Pretty good. Catch hitting 60 homers is beyond belief. I mean,
it's crazy.
Hitting is probably like the fourth thing on a catcher's mind. When he gets to the ballpark, and for him to hit 60 is. I've
had people yell at me, swear at me, catchers included, who were like, "Are you nuts? Like this isn't a debate. Cal Raleigh's the MVP. Yeah, Aaron Judge isn't getting down, for 3 hours every night fielding pitches from 12 different pitchers. He's not required to think as much before the game, during a game. You know, when he goes home, who do we got next? I got a scouting report on every other hitter in the lineup. Again, hard to quantify because we're in such a numbers world, but again, his numbers stand out. Like he had those numbers. And then people pick and choose. Well, batting average was down, you know, OPS was not here. Again, I'm a little old school purist in that RBIs, runs, batting average means you're getting on base. That stuff means something to me still.
I'm going to ask you one question here. It might be the final question, but harkening back to a previous conversation we had during this podcast, and that goes into the review at home plate that could have decided the World Series. Would you expect Major League Baseball, Karl, to institute some kind of a provision that says you can not end a game on a review?
No, I don't.
Yeah, how can you do it? I don't know.
I mean, I know this, Bob, and you guys know this. I mean, literally every game will end with the final play being reviewed, whether it was close or not. I mean, every final out needs to be reviewed. So that one was going to be reviewed anyway. You know, it needed to be reviewed. No, I don't think so. I mean, look, the cat's out of the bag. You know, the genie's out of the bottle. Pandora's box is open. I find myself in situations where inexplicably some plays are not reviewable. When you have the video evidence that what the ruling on the field was wrong, and you because it's not reviewable aren't able to go back and look at it and correct a mistake, either we do away with instant replay or we continue down this path of more cameras, more information, more plays being reviewable. We're going to have balls and strikes reviewable next year when a guy, instead of this, he's doing this on the top of his head. You're going to be able to review it, and it's very easy. Look, for us who didn't grow up without screens and all sorts of gaming consoles, we had Nintendo if we were lucky.
Close.
That's not going away. And this audience, I thought about baseball when they started to talk about replay review. You go to, remember Wimbledon. When you watch Wimbledon, it was the best thing ever because your eye cannot tell whether a ball's in or out. And that thing would zoom right in and you'd see it on the line. You're like, ooh, it's out. That's where we are. People who want to be actively involved sitting at a baseball game will do this with strikes. It'll work. It'll be great. All of a sudden, a guy goes like this, 38,000 people look at the screen. Ooh, that was a ball, not a strike, and they're cheering. Like, it involves the fan, believe it or not, in a weird way. So replay is not going anywhere. They're not gonna rule on it. The one thing I thought that came out of this World Series was, is there a way to limit, can they come up with an Ohtani rule where you can't intentionally walk a guy every time he comes up because you're taking that away from the fans' ability to see. And the truth is, then the pitcher could roll the ball to home plate. It doesn't force the team to pitch to him in the zone. They could throw epheses that would be caught 10 feet behind home. So that was one of the things that occurred to me. Like, how do you come up with an Ohtani rule? Because this sucks. He's getting intentionally walked every time. That's not what people paid to see. And I understand the arguments. Well, have the other guys get on base in front of him, blah, blah, blah. That would be the only rule I thought as a result of this series there would be some consideration for, but I wouldn't even know how you would implement something like that.
When the Dodgers are on the road, is Ohtani the most sought after visiting player everybody wants to see? Do necks crane to see Ohtani?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or is it Hopper, or is it somebody else, or Judge?
No, it's not close because you're involving an entire country. I mean, the Japanese media, and you probably witnessed this.
Yeah.
Look, Ichiro used to have to stay in different hotels. When he was playing in New York or he was playing in Seattle, he had to stay in different hotels because the Japanese are so invested in their players. And Ohtani's on another planet that way. He is that way. Judge is another guy that gets that kind of treatment. Harper and Trout to a lesser degree, but that was a common. I learned terms from players that would be analysts on Baseball Tonight about what they would call those fans that are constantly around hotels, waiting for players and looking for autographs, etc. Wasn't the most favorable term, so I'm not going to repeat it. But the players are very aware of the fans and their interests, and sometimes their financial interests in getting something signed. But no, Ohtani's he's on a different level. Yamamoto may get there. I mean, you're going to keep throwing complete games and come back after throwing 96 pitches the next day. He may get there as well, but it's definitely Ohtani. I can't I think articulate properly how physically big he is. TV doesn't do it justice, and then how big he is globally. He's number one.
You ever get near him?
New Balance. New Balance came out big.
Pretty smart. Yeah.
Pretty smart.
Pretty smart. Pretty good investment. Oh yeah, I've been near him. We've talked to him. He's like most of these players that profess not to be able to speak any English. He's pretty good at it. He's enormous. I mean, I remember like you guys. I remember the '99 All-Star game at Fenway, and when you saw the players lined up on the first and third baseline, you're like, oh my God! Like, look at how big McGuire is. He's just ginormous. And then you see a lot of other guys that were similar in size. And then all of a sudden you'd see Jeff Bagwell and you'd be like, oh my God, he's so small. Like Ohtani is right there with Judge. He's right there physically with Ohtani. His back is really wide. He's a giant. I mean, that's something that you don't appreciate about Ohtani, is how much bigger he is than everybody else on the Dodgers. Everybody. Short of maybe Tyler Glasnow.
Well, Karl, you were great today. This has been nothing but informational and entertaining. I really love talking to you about this stuff. I couldn't wait to talk to you about this whole World Series thing and these rules and just good shit. So good job.
I got to read one more commercial. So you should tell Alan Miller that he really blew it. You could have been talking baseball with this guy in the office every day and taking him to Red Sox games, and instead he came over to 5 TV Place. So make sure you tell Alan Miller he blew that one.
The transfer portal, it was
I still have eligibility.
Way ahead of its time when it came to local TV.
Hey, if you're thinking about a new vehicle, go with Lobel and Lynch. Go see our good friend George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota. Lobel and Lynch have been customers for years because we know that George Gray will treat you right. They're a family-owned and operated dealership that we trust and you can trust as well. Go see the big wheel, the great George Gray at George Gray's Lexington Toyota, 409 Mass Ave in Lexington. I got to go over there this week, get my oil change, by the way. And so he will already have listened to this by then, but he's a big fan. And I know he's a big fan of yours too, Karl. And this has been fun. So you would consider going to the highest bidder, Karl, for one more year of an internship?
Hell, I may want to end my career doing what you did in Boston. You never know. My folks are still there. I may end up coming back. You never know. But yeah, I'd come back. NIL money is big right now. I know Lobel's got a big budget. I'm all ears here. And I'm my own agent. You don't need to go to anybody. You call me. I
always bought pizza, though, for you guys.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
That's where I learned all about. I learned all about a tuna salad at your place because we would get takeout, and that's where I learned about putting tuna on top of a salad. I thought I had died and gone to heaven, and still eat it to this day.
Well, thanks for coming by, Karl. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, you guys are the greatest. It's an honor for me to be on with you two. Really, it's an honor. Thank you very much.
Does that mean an honor or
this was the heart microphone, middle mic, heart over here. You guys you're awesome. Thank you guys.
You too, Ravech.
It's a great Karl Ravech. Thanks so much, folks, for joining us. And make sure you follow us on unanchoredboston.com. And you can follow us and watch us on YouTube as well. See you next week, everybody.